Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today, we're recapping Alexander Povetkin versus Whyte2. Let's go.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy, just...
Well, I think I called it. Povetkin didn't look so good. Not from the start of the fight. Not from that ring walk. He looked like he was gassed coming into the ring. He looked dried. He looked sick. He looked fatter. He looked slower. He was older. He was a great fighter at one point, Povetkin. I've said this many a times. One of the best heavyweights to have never won a legit title. Yeah. And he was knocked out. He was knocked out in the fourth round. But he was hurt throughout the fight. He was hurt in the opening salvo of the fight. Whyte wanted to prove a point. And he kind of did. But he did so against a fighter who we knew was on the decline. A fighter who's 41 years old. Who had just come off a COVID sickness that had postponed the rematch in the first place. Whyte looked good, don't get me wrong. This isn't a knock on Whyte. His jab was there. His hooks were there. He was able to move out of range. Povetkin just did not have the speed every time he tried to come in to land either that uppercut or that or his left hook, like he usually likes to do that. That jump in, duck to your left, and shoot the uppercut or the hook, the one that caught Whyte in that first fight, he wasn't able to do that. Whyte was waiting for it. Whyte came in much thinner. Look at the before and after pictures of Whyte. He lost a lot of weight coming into this fight. He couldn't risk it. He knew his career was on the line. A loss to Povetkin here would have set him back years. Would have cost him millions upon millions of dollars. But he knew that, and he acted accordingly. If you listen to my pre-fight video, you guys placed any bets, again, this was not advice. It's just what I was going to do, my analysis of it. I had said that if Povetkin has a shot again, it's going to be to stop Whyte again. It's going to be to stop him early. Otherwise, given the first fight, Povetkin doesn't have the legs anymore. His chin is not what it once was. He wasn't going to make it late. And you were getting close to even money odds for taking the under 7.5. So, I made out okay this weekend, and I hope some of you did as well. This was one of the easier calls to make. Povetkin's stamina after COVID was never going to last 12 rounds. He's one of those guys he's a muscular, explosive guy. These guys always have stamina issues. Just look at Canelo and the lower weight classes. Not the best gas tank. Already an all-time great fighter, Canelo is already a Hall of Famer, but not quite the all-time great gas tank. You see the same thing with Conor McGregor, and you even saw it with Tyson. These fast, explosive fighters, those kind of fast-twitch muscle fibers, they'll eat up your oxygen. And Povetkin is no different. The reason why he has so many spectacular knockouts is the same reason why he's not so great in the latter half of the fight, or in the last, let's say, quarter of the fight, those 10, 11, 12 rounds. He's not the best out there because, well, he quite frankly doesn't have much of the stamina. Whyte has a similar issue, but not because he's explosive. Whyte's not the athlete that Povetkin is, so that's not really his reason. It's that he's out of shape often. But he came in looking good this time, Dillian. That jab was working. He was able to move with that jab. He was able to keep Povetkin at bay the entire time. I'll be frank, I barely saw any punch. I've only seen the fight once so far. But I barely saw any punches land for Povetkin. It seemed like he had almost no shot at it after that. Within the opening 30 seconds, unfortunately, the writing was on the wall for Povetkin. To get hurt so early, sometimes fighters can recover, no doubt. But at heavyweight, at 41 years old, no way. Those legs aren't there. Not after battling COVID. So, again, this is not to take away from Whyte, who did his homework, trained how he needed to train, diet how he needed to diet, and implemented a game plan to keep an aging fighter at bay and to land the shots that he wanted to land. Now, Povetkin goes down in the fourth round by first a right hand opens up the salvo. And Povetkin's already breathing heavy. He bounces off the ropes. and you hear the commentators are saying, oh, he's about to go, and Dillian just starts unloading. Dillian was also a little bit sloppy in these fights. You saw that. I think there's a little bit of anxiousness in Dillian. He really wanted this knockout. I think he needed this knockout. I think like a grinding decision win here would have, again, also been almost as bad as a loss. But back to the actual knockout. So as I said, he was a little bit sloppy. In the opening salvo, he lands and hurts Povetkin, but he misses like most of the shots he throws. In the fourth round, like I said, the right hand opens it up. He hits him with a straight right. Povetkin bounces into the ropes. His legs are again wobbly. This is like the fifth time in the fight where Povetkin's legs are just not there. He starts wobbling around. He gets clipped, I think, one more time, and then Dillian lands a really good left hook, and it sets Povetkin down into the ropes. He kind of falls into the ropes. He falls down. He stumbles his way back up, but again, his legs are really not there, and the ref waves it off, and the corner throws in the towel at the same time. And I think that was the good call. There was no need for Sasha to take any more damage. Like I said, he's just. This isn't a game. This isn't like a baseball, game where like, oh, they'll just keep him in there for another inning as he's throwing. No. People's lives are lost. I think I saw the Max Dadashev fight where he died. Watching a fighter die in our sport is no joke, and you always have to remember that death is a real consequence of letting fights go on for too long. And you can even say, given the way that Povetkin was losing, you could have stopped the fight at any point, really, after that second round. By the time it became obvious that Povetkin just is not there at all. The punches didn't have any snap, really. The feet were gone. He was getting wobbled the entire time. Now, it may come out that he may have been sick still, and it probably was. This COVID's a real disease. I'm not one of these, like, COVID is a fake kind of guy. Once you're up there in age, once you start getting into your 40s and at a professional level, this is a respiratory illness. And boxing is a sport where your respiratory game is one of the most crucial aspects of the sport, your endurance. So if this virus affected his already somewhat poor endurance, then, he may have not been able to recover. He looked winded walking out to the ring. It was a little bit sad watching him go the way he did, but I think that this is a good place to call it a career. He doesn't need to fight a Wilder if there were any talk of that. I know Dillian wants to maybe settle something with Wilder, but Povetkin, there doesn't need to be any fights. Maybe one last fight in Russia against a literally who, just for the fans, some really low rank guy who wants to get paid. And Povetkin has a swan song in Russia, but he doesn't need to fight any more killers. I went over his resume last time. He has a really strong resume, a very good career. He probably won't make the Hall of Fame, but I think you can at least make the case potentially to the voters. His name may end up on a ballot. I don't think he'll get any votes, but nonetheless, he's had a very good career. And so I think an easy fight here is due for him if he wants to have one more as a send-off. But I think this should be it for Povetkin against any real opposition. For Dillian, like I said, he looked really good. Now, I was most impressed by his jab. We've seen Dillian with a good jab before, but it was really on point. He knew exactly where to throw it. You can tell that he was dedicated this camp. Obviously, his physique showed this. But where does he go now? Well, they were talking about a Wilder fight earlier. I don't know. I don't know if you want to risk that with Dillian. Wilder, boxing is one of those sports that you're only as good as your last fight. But you can't judge so harshly Deontay Wilder, that is. You can't judge him so harshly. He could have had a bad night. People have bad nights. And we know with heavyweight, your power is the last thing to go. Does Dillian Whyte, who has been stopped, his losses have been by stoppage. Do you really want to fight against Deontay Wilder, who probably hits harder for sure than Povetkin or Joshua, who both clocked you? Do you really want to risk your career on that fight? Because Deontay Wilder has nothing to lose taking that fight. Now, yes, of course, I think Deontay Wilder would take that third Fury fight. He may believe in his head that he can beat Fury a second time. But maybe he doesn't get it. You see, even with the Joshua negotiations with Fury, there's a lot of headaches and a lot of back and forth with these negotiations. They're really tough to get down. Really tough to get down. Simply because losses matter so much in heavyweight boxing, and Fury seems to be hard to get into a ring. Wilder may take this Whyte fight. it may be fine for him. He's seen Whyte late cold. He's seen it. He knows, like, hey, if these fighters who can punch, who are not as good of a puncher as I am, can put down Whyte and, like, clean him out, I can easily do the same thing. You're going to have a confident Deontay Wilder in there against Dillian Whyte. And now, if I were Dillian, I don't take that fight. I really try to wait out this Joshua Fury fight. And if you get lucky, maybe the negotiations fall apart, even though supposedly it was signed. You know, DAZN actually even tweeted a picture of it. But you never know. Until they're actually in the ring, anything can happen, especially with Fury in there. Until he's in the ring and the bell sounds for the first round, that fight is not on. So he may try and wait this fight out. He may see, because, like I said, I think Fury's dad was out earlier today or yesterday, whenever, I don't remember when I saw the video, saying, like, oh, this fight's not on. This fight's not on. What's been signed? Nothing's been signed. So, again, like I said, these negotiations are complicated. Dillian may want to wait. I'm sure he's mandatory now. You know, he may get that shot at Joshua, and he did okay at Joshua between getting knocked down and getting knocked out. And he did relatively okay. He may say, okay, here's my chance. I may not beat Joshua, but here's my real big payday. You know, Joshua, Dillian Whyte inside of Great Britain, that's a big fight. That's a lot of money. And Great Britain, you know, boxing has been resurgent in the past 15 years in Great Britain, thanks to, like, people like Carl Froch and Joe Calzaghe and David Hay and Bellew even. I mean, they took somebody like Cleverly and made him a household name there. It's no disrespect to Cleverly, but you just don't think of someone like Cleverly to be a household name type of fighter. But it just goes to show you just how ascendant boxing is over there. So, you know, Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua is going to do big money for Dillian Whyte. This is prize fighting, folks. Money is the most important thing. It should be viewed as the most important thing for fighters. Your legacy, all this other stuff, only the hardcore fans care about that. Your general populace, your life after boxing, the most important thing is the money you make and the health you maintain. And this is why I will never, ever, ever talk ill about Floyd. You know, everyone's saying, oh, he waited this person out, he waited that person out. Floyd is the smartest fighter potentially in the history of the game. He went in, made an ungodly sum, maybe $1 billion. He got out with his health intact, with his resume looking spectacular. And by the way, me personally, I don't think it would have mattered if the Pacquiao fight happened in 2009, 2010. Maybe it would have been a little bit closer. But that fight that happened in 2015, or whenever that was not a close fight, ladies and gentlemen. Even if Pacquiao's a little bit better, even if he's 2 rounds better, he still loses that fight. 6'4", 7'5", or something like that. I mean 6'4", 8'4", 7'5". So, and that's what Dillian Whyte needs to think about, you know, to come back to Dillian Whyte. He needs to think about his money-making abilities. All fighters do. So, I would not risk a Deontay Wilder fight. I would say, you know what, yeah, there's been some words exchanged. Yeah, I have bad feelings towards the guy. Think about the money. Think about your family. Think about what opportunities may lay. Now, of course, if in the next month or two the Joshua Fury fights get signed and you realize, okay, these guys are going to spend the next year and a half having 2 fights, I don't want to sit a year and a half, then okay, go ahead, take the fight. But I would suggest that he waits a second and not just sign into a Wilder fight. And also, again, all this talk about Wilder, has Wilder even mentioned that he wants to fight? I haven't heard a peep out of him outside of the excuses, outside of his suit weighing too much and firing Breland for whatever reason. So, you know, don't write the checks yet. Let's see what happens. Let's see if this fight gets signed. Let's see if let's see what happens. For now, just, you know, enjoy the weekend, rewatch the fight. You know, be proud of yourself. You did good work. You and your team did some really good work. Also, again, that was nice sportsmanship showing at the end, you know, bringing over the chair to Povetkin. The guys seem to embrace each other. There doesn't seem to be any bad blood. You know, this is fighting. Someone's going to lose. Someone's going to get knocked out. Someone's going to get hurt. These things happen. Each guy knocked the other guy out. And I think there definitely doesn't need to be a third fight, as I said. I think Povetkin should be done. And Dillian, like, there's just no need for him to come back for a third fight. So, yeah, that's that. Now, let's talk about some other stuff that happened. There was the Amanda Serrano fight. Now, Amanda Serrano is proving and is becoming the definition of a pound-for-pound fighter. I think this is like her 7th belt or 7th weight class. Belt in her 7th weight class. That's quite insane. You know, everyone was cheering Manny Pacquiao and was ready to label him the top 3 best fighters of all time when he had won the belt at 154. And well, this is a huge accomplishment, and the reason why we don't hear more about it is because unfortunately the female divisions do not get the attention the male divisions do. But Amanda Serrano boxed beautifully against a tough opponent in Daniela Barramundez. And in the 9th round, she stopped her with a great just combo to the body as Barramundez kept moving forward on Amanda. And it was, again, she's a sensational fighter, a legitimate pound-for-pound fighter by winning this many fights in this many weight classes and this many titles. Again, nothing much to say, but pound for pound, and I can't wait to see her next fight. And now some gossip news over the weekend or since our last show. Oscar De La Hoya, the Golden Boy, is planning a comeback on July 3rd against a UFC fighter. I'm sure this is going to be, of course, a boxing fight, and it's gonna be a multi-fight deal that he signed with Triller. And Triller, again, did the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones fight with all the rappers and the YouTube fighters. Now, again, a lot of the boxing loyalists don't like it, but I think this is wonderful. I think these kind of like showman freak show fights with YouTubers and TikTokers and retired fighters, this is perfect. This is entertainment, guys. The sport is entertainment. It's prize fighting. People are willing to pay to see this kind of stuff. If you can get Donald Trump and Joe Biden in a boxing ring, forget it. Do you know how much that would sell? People will say, oh, that's not a real boxing fight. It is. It's a prize fight. That's all it is. We just agree that we like the Queensberry rules and that we like this and that and these fighters to have been trained since they were 5 and blah, blah, blah. Guys, I want to be entertained. I find this entertaining. And I think Oscar De La Hoya was one of the best fighters in terms of resume in the past 30 years. He may have the best resume of any fighter in the past 30 years. He fought everybody. He fought Floyd. He fought Bernard. He fought Corte. He fought Trinidad. He fought Vargas. He fought everybody. Gotti, I mean, this guy was, he didn't win them all. No. He wasn't the best fighter of the past 30 years. No. But his resume is unmatchable. The only fighter in the modern day which has a similar resume is Pacquiao. And people are ready to crown him to be one of the 10 greatest fighters ever, partly because of that, except Pacquiao won the majority of his fights. I mean, as did, of course, Oscar De La Hoya, but Pacquiao won the outright majority versus Oscar De La Hoya has obviously notable losses to Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather close fight, but he lost that one, the Felix Trinidad fight, which most people thought he won, but wasn't given the decision, and he had the controversial choice to kind of get on his bicycle in the latter half of the fight when it looked like he was up hugely, to use a Trumpian term, hugely, bigly up on the scorecards. But again, with boxing, you leave it in the hands of the judges, you're going to get surprises thrown your way, and that's what happened with Oscar. Now, again, so I love it. If Oscar's health is in order, if he trains, I mean, he looked a little chunky, so I know he's planning a July 3rd fight, but he's got to start training now. You know, his body at 46 or 47 or however old he is, in his late 40s is not the same as you are even in your mid-30s, let alone your mid-20s. It's going to be hard to lose that weight. You know, Oscar has big pockets over his career and his successful promotional company. You know, it's unfortunate they lost Canelo, but I'm sure he's doing well financially. It's hard to get up in the morning. It's hard to say no to that additional bit of food. It's hard to, push a little bit further to lose the weight. Not to mention also with the fact that your body has slowed down. Your testosterone production is down. The pains hurt a little more. The aches last a little longer. But nonetheless, against a UFC fighter, I'm sure this is going to be also a named UFC fighter. Someone who's got a little bit of something. You know, with the Ben Askren, Logan Paul fight or Jake Paul fight, Askren, he has a little bit of notoriety. He's a shit talker. He potentially has one of the most famous knockout losses now in MMA history to Masvidal with that jumping knee. So there's something to sell there. He's in the public imagination. They're going to need to find someone like that for Oscar. I wonder who's going to be. Maybe it'll be Chuck Liddell, someone who can use some hands, because realistically speaking, MMA and boxing are very different sports. A lot of these MMA guys are not good boxers. And even with Conor, he looked okay. He looked pretty decent against Floyd for a guy who's never really professionally boxed. But, against a more offensive-minded Oscar, who may not want to carry a fighter. This is just it's not a good look also for MMA to consistently send people to get beat up in a boxing ring. I know for a while boxers were doing that to MMA. Just kept sending guys into the cage to get taken down and submitted, like James Toney and stuff. Like, stop that. They're two different sports. There's some crossover similarities, of course. In MMA, you use hands to punch, and in boxing, you use hands to punch. But no, two different sports. I like them both. I like boxing much more. Let's keep it like that. But again, this is a different thing. Oscar's an old guy, so anything goes. A prize fight. You're paying for it. We're watching. And so maybe they get like a Chuck Liddell, someone with a little bit of notoriety. Like I said, someone who the fans may go, "Oh, that guy," and not go, "Who? Who?" You don't want to literally who. You want a somebody. Hell, you may even get a George Masvidal. But I think actually Masvidal may hurt De La Hoya. He's a big guy. So I don't think you want to risk that, especially I know he's been chatting with Canelo a little bit. Canelo and Oscar have that soured relationship. Can you imagine if they signed Masvidal to fight Oscar and Masvidal's over there training his ass off with Canelo? Yeah, I don't think so. It's not going to be Masvidal. It's got to be someone who's also retired, someone who Oscar De La Hoya will most likely easily beat. But again, Oscar's actually talked about this for a little bit of time. He's talked about coming back and fighting for a few years now. For a few years, I think since Floyd fought Conor 3 years ago, I think Oscar has been talking about it since that point. He loved this, and I think Mike Tyson, in many ways, see again with Floyd how smart he is and how much we should be thankful for it. He paved the way for a lot of this stuff, this kind of weird freak show stuff. He made it acceptable. One day, Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor for one of the biggest fights in history. And now you have YouTubers doing this. Now you have Mike Tyson coming back on that Holyfield 3 fight looks like it's going to happen. I mean, this is a whole new ballgame, and I think this is, again, great for our sport. Because if you can just, if 10,000 more kids see this sport and only like 0.1% of them see the fight, that's another 100 kids who would never fight, who would never be boxers or any sort of fighters, trying to enter our sport. And that's good. We want more talent. We want our sport to grow all the time. I most care about boxing and its growth. I don't the intricacies and the purity and this purity spiraling that some boxing fans like to do. I don't like it. I know they do this in baseball as well, and that's why that game sucks. I'm sorry to all you baseball fans. It's a sport. It's a skills competition, not even so much a sport. Baseball is, but whatever. But with boxing, I wanted to grow. I wanted to get with the times a little. And if that means YouTubers versus TikTokers versus ancient legends versus, Ryan Garcia, Instagram stars, then that's what we need. I want the sport to grow. I don't want it to be just us and the 5 other guys who are like, you saw that jab? Beautiful technique. No, I don't want that. I want a lot. I want variety, diversity. I want the whole gambit for this sport. I want to be able to sit there with those 5 guys and say, oh, that's a nice jab. He pivots off his left foot real well. He moves away from the power hand. And at the same time, I want the kids next to me or the fans next to me to say, wow, did you see that crazy punch? It came out of nowhere. It was a lucky shot. He knocked him out. I want them to enjoy the sport as well. And I want to make sure there's enough room for those kind of fans in our sport. Because our sport has become very niche, very elitist, very nerdy in that sense. And that's when things become uncool. So I want our sport to be cool. I want our sport to be hip. I want it to be growing. That's going to do it for me for now. Again, go enjoy these weekend's fights. If you haven't seen them, they're short. Well, at least the Povetkin one was. I mean, the Serrano boxed beautifully. And I'll be back on a Thursday. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
Like she's strong, man, good boy, just.